Hello Linux fans, Rob here. Welcome to Linux Quest, and as always, thank you for watching. So today we have a review of Korora 25. I've been looking forward to the release of Korora 25. It is based off of Fedora, and in this case, Fedora 25. And they've updated a few things, primarily within Fedora. It is now default booting into Wayland for your, as opposed to X11 for the graphics video side of things. And so I decided for this review I would go with the GNOME version 3.22 since it would default to Wayland. However, I had an issue and just wanted to kind of make mention of this before we jump into the review. I had an issue with VocoScreen or any of the screen recording software that I typically use, Simple Screen Recorder, so on and so forth, would not capture the video. The sound capture was fine. So after messing around a little bit, I decided to boot back in under the X11 display driver environment, and that solved the problem. So there's something going on there with Wayland and the screen capture software, commonly used, such as Simple Screen Recorder. I did not try OBS, but at any rate, so we've got the video going. I'm excited to kind of cover this on several fronts, and so before we jump into things here, I just want to pull up let's see here under accessories. Let's go into G-Note here. And I wanted to pull up a few things just to mention to you. So this is, again, Korora 25 is based off of Fedora, and in this case, Fedora 25. What Korora brings to the table is a much easier setup process than you would find under Fedora. So things such as video drivers, repositories such as RPM Fusion, things like that, are already set up for you. So, FFmpeg, for example, is pre-installed under Korora. So if you're interested in trying Fedora, or you've been a Fedora user in the past, Korora is something that I would recommend that you take a look at, based on several things. Number one, again, it's going to save you a lot of time in setting up various repositories such as RPM Fusion, or United RPM, things like that. It's also going to save you time with various drivers and things like that, video drivers that are not open source. And then also you're going to have now with Korora a large selection of desktop environments. So the current kernel now in version 25 here is 4.8.11. 300, so you've got a very recent kernel there. Unfortunately, though, Korora 25 is only released for 64-bit, so no 32-bit currently. They stated that they just see fewer and fewer calls for 32-bit, so 64-bit only. But you also have a large selection of desktop options. So GNOME 3.22, Cinnamon 3.2, Mate 1.16, XFCE 4.12, and now they've brought back KDE. They listed that they had a lot of people requesting KDE, so they have reintroduced the KDE desktop option for Korora. They do state that it is just generic, so my suspicion is you're going to boot into a fairly default KDE look. They haven't gone in and themed it like you'll see here in just a minute. Under cold boot here, I came in at 1.5 gigs of RAM usage. I've got this installed on my hybrid system, so you're 4 gigs of RAM with an SSD drive, an Intel processor, so it's a mediocre system. So I just wanted to give you the rundown there. Let's take a look at some of the things that are going on here as far as what's pre-installed and pre-configured and set up, because I think you'll find, first of all, it's a good assortment. It's a fairly full-featured install. It came in just over, I believe I should have recorded that, but I think it came in somewhere close to 2 gigs. So let's jump into a few things. Now, what you see here is kind of default. You'll see that the wallpapers are going to be very similar to what you see within Fedora. Korora has added a few of their own by default. They've got it set up to automatically shuffle wallpapers. So pretty nice selection as far as wallpapers are concerned. And so I just decided to choose one for this video here. The other thing that I changed, other than the wallpaper, just so that you'll see everything as default, the other thing that I changed was I added applications. So you have a categorized menu drop down there for your applications. By default, Places was in place. Now, one of the things that Korora sets up for you is the dash to dock setting. So I'm going to go ahead and start stepping through some of those changes just in case it's the first time you've seen this. So again, this is GNOME 3.22. The dash to dock settings have been pre-configured or pre-set up for you by the Korora team. So we'll go into dash to dock, and you've got some options there, and I'm not going to get through all of the details of all of the options on dash to dock, because I want to kind of focus on what Korora is and some of the things you offer without getting into deep configuration settings and things like that. But for the purposes of this video, I want to move this to the bottom. You have other options such as size limit, icon size, the behavior, things like that, where you show favorite applications, as well as appearance, where you can use the built-in theme, things like that. So that is your dash to dock settings. So you'll see that by simply right-clicking on the dash to dock settings application launcher icon. You can also move that. So let's go over to the behavior tab, and you'll see move the application button at the beginning of the dock. So now it's shifted that from the right to the left. So that gives you an example of the dash to dock settings. Now the other thing that I want to do is I want to go in and go over some of the tweak tool settings, and the tweak tool is also pre-installed. So again, that's an area where if you were to install Fedora at its base with GNOME, you would have to add these things. You would have to add dash to dock settings. You would have to add the tweak tool. Personally, I feel like the tweak tool should be by default within the GNOME desktop environment, as well as, for example, Unity. So we'll go into tweak tool here. And so the first thing you're going to see under tweak tool is appearance. And here you'll notice that the Arc theme was pre-installed by default, as well as the Numix circle theme, and then the Breeze cursor icons. That comes from the KDE icon set. And then the shell theme is also Arc. And all of this is combined to give you what I think is a very attractive appearance compared to the default GNOME theme that you're going to find within the Fedora install. My suspicion is that you're also going to see this theme set up within Mate, as well as XFCE and Cinnamon. However, again, they listed that with KDE, it's a generic KDE, so you would not have these particular themes in place if you decide to install KDE. Now, one of the other tweaks here that I want to go through and just kind of share with you briefly are extensions, and you'll see here that they have a very good list of extensions pre-installed as well. And again, that's going to save you some time. So I toggled on applications menu, so we'll toggle that off just to give you an example of what that looks like. So with applications menu, you get a drop down here, and I prefer this over the full screen application launcher that is default. You also see dash to dock, that's what we configured earlier. And then open weather was set up already, that was in place for you. The places status indicator was on by default, and so that is right here, and that gives you a quick drop down to your files and folders. So that's another extension that I typically turn on. Now, to get more extensions, you can simply click on Get More Extensions, and that will launch you into the browser. And so they're going to tell me now, and I'm not going to step through this, but oftentimes you'll see, depending on the browser and how it's set up, you'll see that they cannot detect a copy of GNOME running on this system. And if you go into the troubleshooter, what you'll find is that you'll need to install the extension here for GNOME within, we'll go ahead and allow this, and let's see if that, and it could be that it was blocking it, so we'll go back and see. But you may have to go in and install through your browser under settings. Typically it's under settings or preferences, where you'll find the extensions, and you'll see that within Chrome and Firefox. And once that extension is installed, you'll then be able to go in and simply install extensions by clicking on a toggle switch. Alright, now in this case, that extension was set up. It's just that the browser was blocking it and I had to allow it. So if you run into that, you'll know by default that the extension within Korora 25 is set up and working. Just make sure that it's not being blocked like it was for me. So here you can go in and you can toggle on or off certain extensions or search for extensions. And I'm going to go to top here. And Top Icons Plus is another extension that I highly recommend. And what that does is that takes this tray bar down here, this taskbar down here, and it puts it up top where you think it would normally be. I've always found it odd that they put this little separate tray or panel here for running applications. So we're going to go ahead and toggle that on. And once you toggle that on, it'll ask you to confirm the install. And now you'll see that the screen recorder icon is up top here where I feel like it should be by default. Alright, so that's an idea of extensions. Again, I don't want to spend too much time there. We're going to go ahead and close tabs out. And again, all of this was set up for you as default or by default by the Korora team. So that's what makes, to me, one of the things that makes Korora so attractive in its use is that it's a huge time saver as opposed to going in and setting up Fedora. So you get the benefits of Fedora, which are bleeding edge, a stable OS with a huge development team and community support behind it. And then Korora adds to that, especially in GNOME here, because you're using kind of the latest and greatest from Fedora, which is Wayland in this case, that's one of the large changes for 25 is Wayland support. And it's funny, I had screen recording issues, had to revert back to X11, so I'm not really gaining the benefit of that. However, you get the idea. And having all of this set up, again, saves you a lot of time. I would say that, for the most part, if you are fairly new to Linux or experienced with Linux, and you just decided, hey, I want to try Fedora for the first time, I personally would just skip right over Fedora and go right to Korora. So let's jump into some other things here. Let's look at a list of the pre-installed applications, because again, this is a fairly large ISO, and I'm going to call this a fairly heavy install. Not that the operating system feels heavy. I mean heavy from the aspect of pre-installed software. So you'll see Gnote and some of the default GNOME applications pre-installed, of course. You'll see Maps pre-installed, and that's not always the case with other distributions. And you also will see OwnCloud Desktop. So this would allow you to set up OwnCloud. So if you had a server running, you could set up your own cloud server, so to speak. So that's already pre-installed. We'll go back over to accessories here. Font tweak tool, Redshift for adjusting your screen. I think Redshift allows you, and I've tried it before, it allows you to go in and adjust the hues and things, colors within your screen. So I found it interesting that that was pre-installed. Weather here again from the weather applet. And then let's jump over to graphics. Now here was something that was a real surprise to me. Kora. So this is a configuration wizard for 3D printing. So it's the first time I've seen this in a Linux distribution period. So if this is something you're into or have interest in, this could be very nice for you to have this set up and ready to go in and configure. It looks like you could go in and select your particular model and then configure from there. So definitely wanted to mention that to you. All right, we'll go back over here under graphics. You have Darktable, which is a nice piece of software for photos. Shotwell, which you expect to see. Inkscape, GIMP, and Simple Scan. So a very nice selection under graphics. And again, you're not going to see a lot of what I'm showing you set up by default, under Fedora. Then here you have some, and I am not going to pronounce this, but this is basically telecommunication software, so similar to Skype, EKIGA. So it allows you to do video chat and everything, similar to Skype. Not familiar with the software. It's something I need to dig in and look at further. It may be something to feature later on Cool Linux Tools, but that's pre-installed and set up. And let's go back over here to Internet. So you'll see Firefox by default, and then an ebook reader, I believe, here. Yep. Or no, I'm sorry, not ebook reader. It's basically a feed reader for you. So losing my mind. Anyway, so typically you don't see that pre-installed, and you certainly wouldn't see that pre-installed under Fedora. Under Office, you're going to see LibreOffice. You'll also see Evolution, which is the email calendar client and everything for GNOME. And as that has evolved, it matches the theming and everything fairly well. And I think they've done a nice job with that. So if you prefer using an email system that's not cloud-based or just launching into your browser for your email, you may want to give Evolution a look for sure. And then you have calendar, contacts, that kind of thing that is default to GNOME. So let's go back to sound and video. So here you're going to see a large selection as well. Now I have installed VocoScreen and Simple Screen Recorder. Everything else was installed and set up for you. So you have Audacity, Brasserio, Cheese, GTK Record My Desktop. Handbrake was pre-installed. So now you're starting to see why this was a larger ISO. PTV or PTV. Lash panel I'm not familiar with. Pulse audio control is there. Rhythm box, and then sound converter, as well as sound juicer and VLC media player. So a large selection there under sound and video. So you've got a firewall set up here, and then you'll see SE Linux troubleshooter, things like that. Under system tools, again a large selection here. You've got boxes pre-configured for you. Fedora Media Writer, and that's new. I believe that's a new version under Fedora 25 for creating, ISOs to USB. Take an ISO image and put it on a USB. Definitely are going to give that a try. Let's go back to System Tools here. You'll have your Package Manager. Yum was pre-installed and set up, and so again, that's saving you time compared to Fedora. Of course, you have Terminal here. One of the things I want to note too was the under the Software Manager, which is the default. Actually, let me launch in here just so I can show you the full screen launcher for those of you who are maybe not familiar with it. But here's Yum pre-installed. One of the things that I noticed when Fedora 25 first came out, I did install it. I did not do a video on it or a review on it. One of the things I noticed within Fedora 25, and I wasn't sure if it was on my end or maybe needed to be updated, was that the software manager was extremely slow. Now here I am launching into this, and it's okay. Now this is odd because the first time I launched it after install, it was extremely fast. It was so fast, in fact, that it made me think back to how slow it was on Fedora. And so when I launched it in Korora, it seemed just blazingly fast. And now of course, when I launch it, there was a little slowness to it. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Let me close some things out here. So I'm going to go back. Let's just go back in and try that again. Well, where'd you go? Here we go. Well, of course, now it's going to show up quickly, but you'll just have to take my word for it. The first time I launched the software manager within Korora, it was just like, wow, this thing is fast compared to Fedora. So anyway, all right, we'll move on from there. So system tools, we've kind of covered that. Under utilities, you're going to find backups. You're going to find disk, which is again a default tool there within GNOME, screenshot tool, image viewer, and then tweak tool, which is what we looked at earlier. Here you have system monitor. Now the resources showing here are not going to be fair because we're recording, so you're going to see higher than normal CPU usage and higher than normal RAM usage. It's showing about 1.8, and at cold boot I came in at just shy of 1.5 gigs on RAM usage. So take it for what that's worth, and this is leveled out some here, so you're 18 to 20, 14, 17, so on and so forth. So again, I'm kind of going to sum this one up as to Fedora fans out there. If you're looking for something that you could quickly, maybe carry around with you on a flash drive and quickly do a Fedora-based install and not spend a tremendous amount of time getting the things you typically would set up in Fedora set up, I think Korora is absolutely the way to go. And if you're new to Linux and you've had interest in Fedora, again, I'm going to say it, just skip over Fedora and go right to Korora, because they've put so many things in place and added so many tools for you that it just saves you a tremendous amount of time, and in some cases some aggravation. Now I'll go ahead, and if you're new to Linux, I'll talk about Fedora too from the aspect of the package management. So you've got the option of the GNOME software store, which we looked at, but you also have what is called Yum, and the Yum extender primarily. And so what this would allow you to do is go in, and you see here we have some updates, so I'm not going to do those now, but this would allow you to go in and search for software packages. You could go in by the desktop version, and here you'll see a list of various softwares available. This also allows you to go in and search for various software packages. So if you're a more experienced user, I would say you may gravitate towards Yum Extender as opposed to the software store. Now I'll also let you know that the packages are RPM based, so you're going to find RPM packages as opposed to, if you're coming from Windows, an exe file. You'll find an RPM based package that you would install. So I'm going to go here to RPM. Well, I'm going to type it correctly. RPM for Fedora. And I just want to give you kind of an idea here of, there are several websites where you can go to find RPM. So you have RPM guide, but that's not one. Let's see here. Here's an RPM package database, for example. And so RPMs are readily available. They are used with OpenSUSE as well. There are several websites and forums and things like that where they list various RPMs. Now, RPM Fusion is a repository, and once you have up all of the RPM Fusion repositories in place, so they have free open repositories as well as non-free, but once you have this in place, which is already again set up and pre-configured within Korora, then that opens you up to a lot of software that you typically would not find in your standard Fedora install. Alright, so let's move on to a few other things here, and we'll just kind of take a quick look at theming again, and then from there we'll kind of wrap things up. So under theming, you're going to find all of those options under the tweak tool under appearance, and that's what we looked at in the beginning. So if you like the dark theme, you could launch right in and go to a global dark theme. If you wanted, you could go in and change your icons from here. You're going to see some default icons under GNOME, and then you're going to see Arc primarily, and that's all you're going to find here. You're not going to see a huge list of themes pre-configured. So we're going to switch that to Arc Dark, and you'll see there that it changes the look pretty drastically. We're going to go now to Breeze Snow, so we'll change that icon over, And then here we're going to switch this over to Arch Dark as well. So now we've changed everything and it's kind of given it a dark look. Now one of the areas where I just personally think that there could be some improvement, not to Korora, but to GNOME, to the desktop environment itself, is again, that tweak tool should be default, and you should have a link there that allows you to go in and select and install as easily as you do extensions, themes. But instead, you could go to, and again, for those of you new, I just want to point this out, you could go to GNOME Look. And then from there, you're going to find lots of themes that you can then apply here to the desktop environment. So from there, you could go into GTK themes as opposed to GTK2 themes. You want to go with GTK3 themes because GNOME is now GTK3. And from there, you're going to find themes, and then you could hop over to icons. And you can find icons. So in this case, here's the elementary icon pack, which has been popular for some time. I just briefly wanted to give you an idea of how you could go in and set this up. Now from here, you're going to see install. So that gives you a one-click install. Well, we're going to run into a problem here with this one for whatever reason. And there are times when you run into that issue, and what is up with that is that in this particular case, the XDG URL is not set up. And so you'll find a video here that shows you how to go in and get that set up. Sometimes, you know, if you're within an Arch-based distro, you're going to find it within the AUR. So here you would have to follow these directions and get that set up and installed. Now, it could be that that just was a bad link. No, that's not the case. Oh, and I've noticed something else. So, by default, in Firefox, uBlock has been set up. So, just wanted to make you aware of that. I haven't seen other extensions other than uBlock where they've gone in and configured that. So, lots of software options here, pre-installed. Lots of configuration options like Tweak Tool and things like that set up and pre-installed. Your FFmpeg and other codecs and things pre-installed. Lots of software desktop choices now. Everything from GNOME to down to KDE. So if you're a Mate fan, you've got that option, or a Cinnamon fan, you've got that option. Overall, this is one that I definitely keep my eye on, and I see this as a kind of a premier distribution in that there are not a lot of Fedora spins, and this one does a very good job. The Korora team does a very good job of putting this all together. I'm surprised to see some of the software that they have included by default, such as the software for 3D printing and things like that. But nevertheless, check it out. Hope this helps. And appreciate you liking and commenting and helping others out within Linux Quest. And that's it for now, and we will catch you later.